Yeah, so briefly to introduce Mifos. So when the discussion started, Mifos is the accounting system for openIMIS. Basically, it's the ledger keeping system for Mifos. So any accounting information that is done. So Mifos, not Mifos, but rather openIMIS being a scheme application or a scheme system. It creates scheme, and then within schemes there are people who are created schemes who are going to enjoy benefits. So basically, if you go to a hospital, you are within a scheme. You enjoy some benefits, e.g., dental, maternity, inpatient, outpatient. So basically, any transaction that happens within openIMIS that requires exchange of money will be kept in Mifos. So that is the reason why Mifos is here. So Mifos would integrate in the openIMIS community. Mifos would integrate with openIMIS. So openIMIS is largely an API-based system that talks to openIMIS and also communicates to Mifos. So basically, the transaction starts from openIMIS, it invokes openIMIS, and then openIMIS talks to Mifos. Then that is on one part. Then there is the other part for the payment layer. So the payment layer where Mojo loop comes in, there are two parts to it, where Mojo loop actually talks to openIMIS. For example, a payment has gone through successfully, or there is a payment to be initiated. openIMIS talks to Mojo loop, and then Mojo loop does the payment, goes back, tells openIMIS, I have done the payment, and then openIMIS marks the payment as completed, and then that payment is sent through openIMIS to Mifos. That is one way. The other way is where Mojo loop talks directly to Mifos, where openIMIS generates a payment through openIMIS. openIMIS sends the request to Mifos, then Mifos logs the request. Then Mojo loop at its own time, it will query Mifos, and then Mifos will give it the Mojo loop the information that is required, and then Mojo loop will make the payment. So these are the two scenarios where we had envisioned the entire system will work. Mifos has got a lot of APIs, so all the APIs that Mifos had are already exposed to openIMIS and also to Mojo loop. The integration between Mojo loop and Mifos is already there. There is an interface in between. So Mojo loop and Mifos don't talk directly. There is an interface in between that does it's more like an API interface. It's more like a wrapper script for someone who understands coding. But it's for someone who doesn't understand, it's just an interface that sits between Mifos and Mojo loop, where the conversion of information happens. So this is how the integration for account creation, activation, deactivation, and information query. So this flow only talks about when, for example, when a hospital is integrated into Mifos, for example, openIMIS will create the account. That information for account creation will be sent to openIMIS. openIMIS will send that information to Mifos. Mifos will create an account, and then it will send back the information with the account details to openIMIS, obviously via openIMIS. So that is one. And then number two, the other part for ledger keeping is generally deposits and collections. So whenever there is any amount being deposited, so for example, a scheme is depositing a certain amount to be used by its users, openIMIS will collect the money, then send that money send that information to OpenHIM. OpenHIM will forward the request to Mifos. Mifos will log, so it will say like, the scheme for Healthix has been deposited by 1 million shillings. So we will log it. And every time someone will come and use a scheme. So for example, if myself, I go to a dental clinic and I use 100,000, openIMIS will receive an invoice for 100,000, then it will credit. Is it credit or debit? Yeah, I think it is debit. Yes, it will debit. It will send a debit info to OpenHIM. OpenHIM will send that the same debit info to Mifos. Mifos will deduct the money from Healthix scheme and send it to the dental clinic. So basically, this is to the payment providers option 1. Basically, no, this is actually the same. So 1 is for cash deposits. Second one is for payments. And then this one shows the difference, not the difference, but rather the integration between Mojo and Mifos, as I was explaining. So Mojo has several ways that it would do it would integrate to Mifos. One is it talks to Mifos directly for querying and updating information. Or number 2, it would talk to openIMIS, where openIMIS talks to Mojo and then Mojo talks to Mifos, gets the information it needs to do to Mifos. Then it goes down to the provider. It makes a payment to the provider. Once it comes back and says the payment has been successful, then it updates Mifos. So basically, that is how we envisioned the system to work, and that is how we did set up Mifos to work within the openIMIS environment. So we would like to do a demo of quite a number of transactions that have been done for the demo, a number of transactions that we've done on the Mifos platform. So I'll give the floor to Duncan to do a brief demo.
So we try to come up with a use case scenario just to see if we can post through transactions, and yeah, so it's what is on the screen. We'll also just share this presentation out. So what we are imagining would be 2 companies who take covers with an insurance company with different benefits and certain limits. So it's what we've tried to set out. And so when we came to the transactions, we tried to now come up with the transactions that we think typical employees will consume these benefits at various hospitals. So what then the work entailed was we'll then needed to set up the hospitals as consumers of the product, and therefore as pays, while we'll try to check on the expense levels and see if we can present them as for example how accountants can consume the information. So the net effect of all these transactions is that all the trial balance will look like this right at the end of the year, because as Mifos is set up, we of course cannot set it up in the future. So we try to set up for a whole financial year, which was from 1st January 2021 to 31st December 2021. So these are just the screenshots of what we came up with. So this is a summary of the income statement, and then a summary of the balance sheet. So to maybe try and just go to the live environment. Give me a second. About that. Okay, so this is the live environment that we are working with, and as a summary, if we check the dates, although it's not very clear, they try to correspond to when these transactions were happening. So so there are quite a number of transactions because when a when a product is consumed, when, for example, a beneficiary goes to a hospital, there will need to be a recognition of the expense incurred and who is supposed to be paid to. And so that's why we have quite a number of transactions. I think we ended up with 90. Yes, 90. Then, so that's now for preparing the accounting entries. If I were to come through and maybe try and extract an income statement, it would so the company, we've called it Open Insurance Limited. And so if I were to extract it, as we can extract it into different formats, but PDF is easiest for us to view in this report. So this is basically what I had prepared, but also it just shows that from the environment that we have set up, that those entries actually correspond to this. So if we're to come back and just check whether the report actually makes sense, so I would say balance sheet. So okay, and then so these are the options that Mifos is able actually to set up businesses as branches. So it's an opportunity then for an organization to set up different, I would say, sub entities, and they will actually can run as effectively as possible. So that in a nutshell is what the use case scenario would have ended up showing us as the amounts consumable, as what so for example, just to make a quick summary, how we set up is to assume that the banks that are chartered will be receiving the premium income. So for the two companies, it added up to 42,000. And then Access Bank, this is the account that was set up to actually pay out the claims, and the Guarantee Bank was actually the one that was set up to receive co-pays and excesses.